So we'll begin with our meditation with that beautiful song in our minds that we just listened to, talking about samadhi, peacefulness, applying our energy and our faith to become calm, and checking in on our posture, noticing if we want to shift a bit, become more comfortable. We want to be able to sit for this 30 minutes in a comfortable way so we can really be at ease. When the body is sufficiently settled and comfortable, then we bring our attention to our breathing. Aware that we're breathing in and aware that we're breathing out. And this requires the establishment of mindfulness. We're watching, we're observing, we're present with our breath. Sometimes when the mind is agitated and we begin to meditate, then we might want to just even have the words in our mind, breathing in as we're breathing in and breathing out as we're breathing out. We don't need to keep this going for very long, just to begin to bring our focused attention to the breath. When we get used to doing this, as I believe many of you are, then you may notice other feelings arising besides just the calm that comes from becoming focused and mindful. Sometimes we feel joy, sometimes warmth, like metta, kindness. So we continue to stay present with our breath, and then we also expand our awareness to include our entire body. So we know we're breathing in when we breathe in, and we feel, you might say feel or experience the whole body. And when we breathe out, we know we're breathing out, and we experience the whole body. And we can stay with this part of the meditation and for as long as we want, true of any step or section or instruction, as long as it's bringing more peace and calm. And not restlessness. We can notice that our body is becoming increasingly more calm. This serves as the enlightenment factor of tranquility of the body. It might only be one step in that direction, but still it's helpful, pleasing, comforting, and supports our further moving into samadhi. We let the body relax. And then as we breathe in and breathe out, we also turn our attention to our mind, our thoughts, and invite them to calm down, to subside. Being aware of our in-breath, being aware of our out-breath, and whatever activity there is in the mind. And then encouraging that activity to become peaceful and calm. So we can proceed in this way throughout the meditation, calming the body, the mind, and being aware of the breath. And then noticing what arises in that space of the peacefulness, joy, happiness. And there could be anything else. We can be curious, interested, with mindfulness bright, wisdom present, knowing what's wholesome and unwholesome, knowing how to encourage the tranquility of the body and the mind, and resting, observant, and clear. If thoughts come in to disturb the peace, we observe them with mindfulness and let them go. Now is not the time. Even if it's something that seems quite important, can handle it later. We can avoid feeling upset or discouraged by whatever comes up in the mind. Just knowing that this is the nature of the mind. And we're here to observe it, to be peaceful and calm and happy in our meditation. tonight I um, agreed to talk about restlessness. It was a suggestion for the topic tonight. The hindrance of restlessness, or restlessness and worry. And I'm sure we've all heard about this hindrance many times. One of the things that the Buddha talked about, comparing restlessness to a bowl of water that's agitated, that's shaking, or has or water that has waves on it, that kind of thing. Noticing that that's how it can feel in the mind. And if we have a restless mind, if we're suffering from this hindrance, the Buddha also compared it to being enslaved. We're the slave, we're to this thinking and worrying. And then when it stops, it's like being freed from that oppression. But I really would like to focus on how we experience this, not just in our meditation, but in our life. And my sense is that even though we all have different situations and in our lives, that in general our world is changing in a way that increases or encourages more restlessness. I'd be interested in knowing if you think that's true. I was reflecting as I thought about this topic that I heard one of the Ajahns in Thailand, I don't remember which one. He observed that the children that come to the monastery from the village are really quiet. They sit quietly. And the kids that come from the city with their families are running all around. They can't seem to sit still. Very agitated and, probably having a good time. But I was thinking about, why would that be? And the village life, especially back in the day when I started to go to Thailand, like more than 20 years ago, was really very quiet. And of course, people worked hard, but it was all, relatively simple labor. A lot of time in nature. And nature is interesting, spending time in nature. Like right now, we're having a lot of rain, I think, up north where most of you probably are. I hear you're having snow, a lot of snow. And sometimes, of course, nature has these powerful, actions that might require that, we have had fires near here, and that requires some quick moving. But most of the time, just listening to the rain and the creek as it goes by the cabin here is quite soothing. Even though it's rushing pretty fast right now, it's still, for the mind, it's relatively soothing. Pretty different from listening to the news. And maybe talking about or thinking about, like what needs to be done, or what got left undone, or, various other things that happen. So when I say that I think our world is changing in a way that encourages restlessness, to a large degree, I think that's about our use of media. We're so connected. There's some really good things about that. Like right now, we can have this time together across the miles, which is amazing. But I also noticed that I tend to pick up my phone a lot. Like one person who comes to some of the teachings we give said, yeah, how many times do I really need to look at the weather in a day? Or check the email, or something like that. And this kind of thing, I think, increases the restlessness, the tendency towards the mind moving more, having more movement. And this is something I noticed about this hindrance of restlessness a long time ago, that it really has a lot to do with what we've been doing outside of meditation, as to whether or not we can easily calm the mind when we start to sit down for meditation. Some things, of course, we can't control, many things we can't control, of course, but if we do have choices around how much stimulation we get, or how we respond to stimulation, then we can help ourselves by trying to slow that down if we can. And I think I notice for myself that really helps. That, if I'm busy interacting with people, it's helpful to take some time to walk in nature, or some time to sit and just read a sutta, or just have some stillness before the meditation, so that the meditation can be more stable and still. And the other thing that I find that really has an impact on how settled the mind is my determination. If I'm really firm in my determination to stay present with my meditation object, I'm really firm with my determination to set aside everything else, I get lots farther with it. It can really have a strong influence in how the mind is behaving, or how easily it comes to stillness. Now, of course, we have experiences in our lives where sometimes we just cannot settle. And, people talk to us here a lot about these kinds of experiences, when someone close to is sick or dying, someone's had an accident, or maybe we've had something happen. And, sometimes it's hard to meditate, and that's okay. Sometimes if there's something big change happening in our life, and there's a lot of agitation, of course, the strength of our mindfulness helps, but we may have to do something other than sitting to support the mind. Walking meditation can help, but that might not even be the right thing. So it's good that we have an array of tools to use. Talking to a good spiritual friend, being able to really stay present with what we're feeling, what we're thinking and experiencing, and work with that in the body. These kinds of techniques and opportunities and resources, and I'm sure you can think of them, things that you've used to help your mind. So I tend to, when I happen to be experiencing restlessness, it's usually called restlessness and remorse, or restlessness and worry. If that's coming up in my meditation, then of course we can use these simple things, like just inviting that to settle down, in turning up our mindfulness, turning up our reflections on joy and the things that inspire us. But I also look at what else is going on. And I find it's really important to have compassion for ourselves. It's okay to experience hindrances. It's part of life. It's part of the practice. But we don't really need to let them hinder us. We can bring an attitude of kindness and happiness to even to that. And mindfulness, it's like, oh, look at that. It can be curious. This is something that was recently reinforced for me in a conversation with Ajahn Pasanno. We were talking about styles of meditation. You know, people are different and teachers are different. And some teachers teach that meditation should be done, you know, really focusing on one point, maybe the tip of the nose, and just keep the mind present there and block out all other thoughts. And for some people, that's very effective. It takes a lot of effort and determination and consistency and mindfulness, and all of those qualities are useful to develop. But it wasn't the way Ajahn Chah taught. He taught a kind of one-pointedness that was inclusive rather than exclusive. And that inclusivity involved quite a lot of curiosity about what was coming up in the mind. You know, really, really examining what was arising rather than trying to block it out. Now, again, I don't think I can say one method is better than another, but we're different. For me, the inclusive approach is better. I can tell. How can you tell? It's when our wholesome qualities increase and our unwholesome qualities decrease. And then we know something's going right and we should continue along that track. And so when we think of it, if we think of it in that way, then whatever comes up it's okay. We can just observe it, acknowledge it, apply wisdom to see how to work with it, and keep a lightness and happiness in our meditation. I don't know if you know who Ajahn Ganhai is. You might have heard me mention him before, or you might have heard of him, or maybe some of you have visited there in Thailand. But I think it's interesting that the big Buddha statue in the main hall and the big Buddha statue outside, they have smiles on their faces. And, you know, it's like he really talks a lot about being happy and being joyful and being at ease. And, you know, if we're meditating and this smile comes because there's so much happiness and joy, that can easily override restlessness and worry. You know, it's not like we're trying to use some kind of spiritual bypassing technique, but just noticing how turning the mind to the good, to the inspirational, can help to put those concerns, worries, or that agitation into context. Maybe it's not so important. Maybe it's not so important to know about everything that's happening in the world. Maybe it's more important to use some sense restraint in that regard. Let go of more of those things that agitate the mind. So that's some short reflection. I didn't ask if you wanted the short, medium, or long reflection. But I am really curious what your questions or experiences are around this. I think that's what really tends to bring out the the more important probably, and the more subtle aspects of Dhamma.
Well, people are thinking, I'll just comment. I haven't had a TV or watched TV for a long time, but I remember early in the 2000s visiting a cousin, um, and her son had the TV on, and I could not believe when it came to the commercial, like every 15 seconds, or I mean, I don't know, it was just a constant flash, 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 flash. And I
Yeah.
remember, going to my psychiatry conferences and the child psychiatrist just talking about this incredibly short attention span that children were developing. And like, it just made me sick trying to sit there in front of this TV where things were like going so fast because I didn't grow up that way. Um, but that's what kids are getting exposed to, and they said it was just a huge problem
Mhm.
anyway, developmentally. So certainly I agree with your opening comments that things are different now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it means that we have an opportunity to really see how we can bring our life more into balance by making wise choices. And there's a lot of it, what's happening in the world, that we can't avoid. And I'm not suggesting that we just all become hermits, although some of us might like that. But to really notice whether what we're engaging in, what we're consuming through our senses is helping us or not. And a lot of times, maybe we think, well, I can help others in this way, and maybe we can, but that's also good to explore. Maybe it's not so helpful. If we put nibbana as the highest goal, and as and that's really complete peace and happiness. If we make that our goal, then it makes it easier to make decisions about whatever else we should include in our life and how we spend our time. Like the decision to not have the TV in your house. I know that's been a really positive thing for me for a long time. But then a lot of times people live with someone who wants that on, like every waking moment. And so one of the challenges can be, how do you manage that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to have some kind of compromise, like headphones or something? Um, you know, there's all kinds of situations that can arise. But maybe one of the useful points is just, making this a higher priority if we are experiencing restlessness in meditation. And this might be an important place to put some effort.
Another comment while people are gathering their questions here, and I know everyone has issues with restlessness, um, is I think for the first 15 years of my meditation practice, I have been taught the single pointedness, like where one hair comes out of the nose or something, one nose hair spot. And I had amazing stillness, but I had no joy.
Mm.
And I sort of woke up um, to this being an issue reading Ajahn Brahm's book Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, and he talked about this being a cul-de-sac, and I thought, man, I'm on this. And I was on retreat with Ajahn Son at the time, and he had me do what you said Ajahn Chah was teaching, where maybe my main attention could be at the nose or whatever, but the peripheral awareness is aware of the breath filling the whole body. Yeah, and that had an amazing effect. Yeah.
Yeah, the guided meditation this evening was really an abbreviated version of Anapanasati, mindfulness of in and out breathing. Those are the most detailed instructions the Buddha gave about meditation. And they're a really helpful framework. And then once you learn the framework, the 16 instructions, then you start to take your vehicle off-roading and use those in a skillful way to really become peaceful and happy.
Well, did you two have questions for Ayya?
But of course, the Buddha gave many tools, many meditation objects and approaches. And I think that that's another place to look when we're experiencing any of the hindrances, is a time to change the technique that I'm using. So are you free from restlessness? You might be. Or maybe it's, I know about restlessness and I know how to manage it. So I'm okay.
Well, I'm in a new phase. I keep going through different phases. So my latest phase is dealing with my massive sleep disorder. So I'm very tired. So I have real issues most of the time having, maintaining any kind of focus. Not all the time. Sometimes, despite being tired, I do get some focus, but that's difficult. So it's just again practicing gentleness and acceptance of that's what is, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah.
I know I've noticed sometimes when I'm very tired, the meditation is better. And I read Ajahn Chah had said that too sometimes. And I saw that in the Stillness Flowing biography of Ajahn Chah. But it's not the norm for me. When I'm tired, when I'm really tired, I usually need to rest and then I can have some good meditation. So hopefully the sleep will come.
I did. I made a new determination to double my meditation, meditate for an hour in the morning and in the evening, and that had an effect of energizing me more. So I was feeling more rested. I didn't get any more sleep, maybe even a little less. So I learned not to do my second meditation right at bedtime, because then I had even less sleep. But when I did it a bit, say, late afternoon, then I was less tired. Yeah, so I was maintaining that just until recently. Then with all the stuff happening around Christmas, other things pushed their way in. I allowed them to push their way in.
Yeah.
But hopefully I'll get back to that.
Did you want to say something, Kelly?
Yeah, I'm definitely experiencing extreme restlessness since being pregnant, actually, because the physical self has just, I've been bedridden. I've been so sick. I have extreme condition of vomiting and nausea, dizziness. So it's taken away my yoga. It's taken away my ability to go for a walk without, it's slowly improving now, but so I find myself watching a lot of movies and just
Mhm.
trying to distract myself in some way, because it's going from being quite active and still meditating, of course, but to just having it all taken away um, has been very challenging for the restlessness. So I'm trying to incorporate little um, like smaller, like bite sizing. We've been talking
Mhm.
about bite sizing things, tasks, and like, even just, okay, a half an hour walk or things like that. But I really find the addiction, it gets it comes in strong. And you just, yeah, it's just something that I'm very much dealing with. I felt like you were speaking to me through the meditation today and through your talk. Like, it was, a lot of it was talking to me. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kelly, because it's a really powerful example of what kinds of things happen in all of our lives. Suddenly, what we're used to with our body is different, and we have to adjust. And sometimes it means that we can't, sit for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever, and whatever our usual is, or we can't concentrate. I'm glad to hear that it's gradually getting better, the nausea and vomiting part. I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind was, well, this is clearly impermanent, which is something we can always say about whatever it is. It's gonna change. And so obviously there's that. Is the baby healthy? And are you healthy?
I am becoming healthy.
Good.
So I'm on the right supplements and, in the right environment now. And yeah, it's just, I have, and I don't want to label it as anything, but I like, my heart rate is through the roof right now. That whole meditation, just, you might not know it, guys, but like coming on to these, like just logging in, I have crazy heart rate, like
Mm.
just, and being so still these past 4 months, the mind has been even more active and more,
Mhm.
you should be doing everything but this, right? But the heart is there too. And so I could feel myself getting short out of breath just sitting in meditation when, and then I'm trying to be kind, but it's like, I
Yeah.
can feel it feeding the energy. I can feel it feeding each other, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's just a very interesting experience that I've been going through, and I definitely try and remind myself that this will pass.
Yeah.
But it's some great lessons.
Yeah, it's a great challenge, I'm really glad that you're, bringing kindness into it, because that's really what we need when we're having these experiences where we just have to deal with what the body's doing. And we all either have or will go through this. And one of the great practices is to prepare for death. And when we're dying, the body knows how to die, and we'll be there observing that. And we'll have to just hopefully be kind with ourselves and recognize that this is just the way it is right now, and this process is going to take its course. And certainly being pregnant and giving birth is a lot like that. It's the body knows how to do this, and the mind needs to support the body to the best it can, and just kind of figure out how to be as healthy and calm and happy and kind as we can, and not be hard on ourselves, um, because it's very much an art. There's no magic formula. And in a way, I feel like the Buddha giving us so many different teachings, so many different approaches, is a way of saying that this is an art. You have to look at the situation and do what you can and see how it goes, and then make some changes maybe. And this is all part of that, kind of being present, applying energy or effort, having a pure, clear intention, and then evaluating how it's going and making changes accordingly. And we can use that, little framework with whatever's going on. And so I wish you every blessing, Kelly, in this process. And this kind of life experience is an incredible teacher. So wish you well.
Thank you so much. It's a miracle for sure, because the baby daddy had a vasectomy, and so it's definitely blessing all of it, and it's hardcore lessons, and I welcome it all. But it's like, holy, everything is in your face now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I find I just get restless when there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. And you have to weigh all the various options, and you have to think on it. You have to meditate on it. Sometimes you have to be a little more active. Like I'm juggling with a bunch of personal decisions and life-changing decisions. And some of them I can't make until I hear back from other people and until they make decisions.
Yeah.
So that's keeps me restless. The uncertainty and not being able to make a decision to make progress.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it's possible to take a little break from it now and then?
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, I don't have a problem shutting it off and taking a break and checking out. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But then if too much time passes and still no decisions have been made, then I can get stressed out really quickly. So yeah. So
it's true. It's one of the things that I know I have a tendency to, and I think it's really common when something is unsettled. We want to bring it to a conclusion. And we can feel that urge to be very strong. Like, I want this settled. And sometimes we'll even make decisions that aren't in our best interest just to get it settled. So a good spiritual friend of mine said to me once, how long can you bear with the uncertainty? And so I started to pick that up as a challenge, like, oh, this is uncertain and it's not going to be settled yet. So can I hang with that? Can I kind of be with that and observe my relationship to the uncertainty, to the open question, the unresolved, and notice the agitation that happens in the whole system, because I want that resolved. But it kind of, it's another way of strengthening our mindfulness and bringing kind of a delightful challenge to it.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I feel the agitation sometimes, for sure. Like my mind goes back to this one time where I was on it wasn't like a retreat, but it was like a wellness package, and there was part of it was a session with a psychiatrist, and he I remember he had a presentation, and he said sometimes it's best to just make a decision. And that there's a known effect, there's like a relief or something that happens in people when you just make a decision. It doesn't have to be the best one, but you just make a decision, whether it's good or bad. And yeah, that comes to my mind sometimes. So I'm like, do I make a decision that's not ideal just to close this and then see what happens? But yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure about how to handle that.
You might reflect on the qualities of the decision or the question and see if it's things you can't know. There are some really major life decisions that we make, like, do I take a job in this city or do I take a job in that city? Um, and there's all kinds of unknowns, and it's going to have a big impact on your life. But those unknowns are things I can't find out. It's not like I can call somebody and say, well, I could call somebody and talk about the cost of living in that city or this city or something like that, something concrete. But no one can tell you what friends you'll make there or how you're going to like the boss, really. Or, there's just a thousand things that are unknown about it. Then I think, after we weigh up the concrete bits, then we just make a decision. Maybe a gut feeling or something. But so in that case, I think I can follow that idea of that. Just make the decision. Once you know all the things that can be known, okay. So I think in that case, yeah. As long as we've already gathered the information and we've got clarity about what matters to us. And I would put keeping precepts really high on the list. And whether or not we're going to be in a loving kind of situation, a kind and trustworthy, be with trustworthy people, those kinds of things. So really looking at how these things match your values. Once you do that, yeah, then maybe just taking that step and seeing how it goes.
Being okay with the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, just like, oh yeah, there's that thing again, that urge to settle it because I'm uncomfortable. Can I be uncomfortable? Can I be comfortable with this discomfort? I think so, for a while anyway. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think I'm going to go grab a book. I'll be right back.
And Gamita, that was a good topic for today.
Great.
I'm going to see if I can quickly find what I'm looking for. It's the poem by one of the enlightened bhikkhunis of the Buddhist time. This is Vijaya. She said, 4 times, 5 times, I went out of the monastery with no peace in my heart, no control over my mind. I approached a nun, paid respects to her, and questioned her. She taught me the Dhamma about physicality and the senses, about the Four Noble Truths, about how we know what we know, and powers that can be cultivated about what brings us to awakening, the Eightfold Path to the highest goal. I listened to what she said and did what she taught. In the first watch of the night, I remembered my previous births. In the middle watch, I became able to see what was not visible. And in the last watch, I split open the mass of mental darkness. And so I lived, filling my body with joy and happiness. 7 days after splitting open the mass of mental darkness, I stretched out my feet. Started with restlessness. Are you familiar with the Therigatha? Poems of the Enlightened Nuns? No? Yes? Maybe?
No.
Yeah, there are poems of the enlightened monks, and that's in a book called the Therigatha. And then there's the poems of the enlightened nuns, and that's the Therigatha. So Tara is the elders, the male elders, and Teres are the female elders. When you read these, and you this is often the things that they said after they were enlightened. And the women's poems were pretty different from the men's poems, I would say, as a collection. The women talked a lot about the hardships of life and how much it changed their lives to have the Dhamma in it, obviously. And then the men's poems are often about how much they love nature, and there are lots of different things in there, many different voices, but it's interesting to kind of look at what can arise out of the situations we find ourselves in. You know, especially if we turn the mind to the Dhamma. It's like, how do I apply the Dhamma here? How do I live according to the Dhamma? Not in a way to kind of force ourselves into a mold, but in a way to bring beauty and brightness to everything in life. That's really one way to see the effects of the Dhamma, starting with keeping precepts and going all the way to, blissful meditation and profound wisdom. And every situation can become something from which we can learn and share and develop.
And this fall, Ayya Nimala and Ayya Santussika and Ayya Nandabodhi became Terries.
Yes. Exciting. And next year, that'll be my turn.
Lovely.
What does Terry mean?
You have 10 years of experience as a bhikkhuni or more. I mean, that's kind of a convention in our tradition that you're called, you're an elder once you've had 10 years after full ordination. So I've been in monastic life for 15 years, but the full ordination came 9 years ago.
What's the history in Thailand of when women stopped being able to be ordained, and what were the reasons?
Yeah, there's some discrepancy or different versions of history that say they didn't never had fully ordained nuns. So from what I understand, it's possible that the bhikkhunis never migrated to Thailand to ordain new bhikkhunis. But there was a time when one of the kings of Thailand wanted his daughters wanted to be ordained as bhikkhunis, and so he made that happen. But the elders of the monastic sangha at the time had a strong reaction to that, and they passed a law that it was unlawful to have women take full ordination. So that law was revoked, I think, a long time ago already. But it's still something that's got a lot of kind of negative push from the hierarchy of the monastic sangha. And there are a lot of monks in Thailand and also monks in the tradition who are abroad who really support women's ordination, but it hasn't become part of the mainstream yet. And there are more and more bhikkhunis in Thailand every year. And one of the first one was Ayya Dhammananda. She is a real joy to spend time with. Very powerful and intelligent woman who's really on the rail, I think, in terms of applying the Dhamma and encouraging this beautiful thing to happen more in Thailand. So it's coming along.
Yeah, Corey from our group and her partner Lori visited her in her monastery a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've been trying to get her to give a little talk to us about that visit, but her mom's quite elderly and she's been preoccupied, but we keep bugging her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see. I've been we've visited her monastery several times, and it's really lovely to see the community of bhikkhunis there. And Ayya Dhammananda also offers a temporary ordination. In Thailand, that's something that the men do. It's a very common part of the culture to take a temporary ordination, maybe for a few weeks or a few months. It's kind of a rite of passage for men as they become adults, and she offers that for women. And it's probably a seminary ordination rather than a bhikkhuni ordination, but you get to, ordain and have brown robes and follow the discipline and live in the community and get a sense of what that's like. And she said to us, yeah, I do this because always a couple of them stick with it. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I've had a number of, we're getting close to the time to end, but I'll just say I've had a number of experiences in Thailand where I'll meet someone and they all if it's I'll meet a man, like maybe a taxi driver or whoever I might contact with, and they'll immediately tell me about their time as a monk with so much pride. It's, I don't mean pride in a bad way, but that kind of joy. You can tell that had a positive influence on their life. So it's interesting seeing that. So it's 8 o'clock, and I hope this has been useful for you. And I really send all blessings. I'll give a little closing chant. This is short and sweet, and you probably know all the words. Devas are the heavenly beings, and you probably know the rest of them too. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Buddhas, may you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Dhamma, may you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Sangha, may you ever be well.
Thank you, Ayya.
So take good care of yourselves and each other. And I hope that you weather all the storms of life in peace and serenity.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you.
You're welcome.